A very good morning to all. I think there'll be a lot of overlap between what Aparna has said and what I'm going to say, but I'm kind of putting in what is the clinical use of aneuploidy screening and how we can actually use it optimally. So we know we have these timelines in ultrasound, the first trimester, when we're looking at dating, numbers, screening, and preeclampsia prediction, and also an early anomaly screening. And then the second trimester, we have our anomaly and our echo. So when we do screening of aneuploidy, it has to be maybe only first trimester, but if we've lost the bus in the first trimester, we also need to look at the second trimester and work on that. And as we know, there is an inversion of pyramid of care now. When I was a PG student, I used to do one visit in the first trimester and then maybe every month and then every week probably. But now everything is done at about 12 weeks of gestation, and then you triage them into high risk and low risk, both for aneuploidy as well as for preeclampsia as well. And then the number of visits would come down if it is triaged in the low risk category. And this has been brought about by NT scans that we have. And it's a screening which needs to be done for all patients. It's not a screening in high risk maternal age increase, because that will only pick up about 30%. It has to be a screening, universal screening, and which is the best method is at present still the first trimester combined screening test. We may do NIPT, but at present in India probably this is the first best combined test. So it would pick up about 90% of aneuploidies, malformations. We do a uterine artery Doppler, as what Dr. Pratima has said, and also do dating and also look at the twins and their chorionicity. So the first thing is assign the gestational age correctly, because that is what will define how you are going to do your screening. So if your CRL is there's a discrepancy of more than 5 days, you would redate the pregnancy and continue that throughout your gestation. NT, we all know, should be standardized and needs to be taken in the correct plane, in the correct view. I'm not going much into that details at all. And if we take only NT as the marker, so it's the most effective marker on ultrasound with a detection of 80% for trisomy 21. And if it is increased, we are looking at not only aneuploidy, we are looking at cardiac, skeletal syndromes, which already has been spoken about. We add on more markers which will increase our detection rate. So when you're doing your NT scan, you need to look at the other markers as well and start looking at them in all your NT scans. So your nasal bone, ductus, and tricuspid regurgitation. So if you have an absent nasal bone, you're actually picking up 60 to 70% of trisomy 21, 18, and 13 as well. So an absent nasal bone is So if it is an absent nasal bone, it's more common in Asian population. So do not just think that absent nasal bones means it is Down syndrome, because it's been sent to us with absent nasal bone and that it is for termination. But you need to test these babies to know that they don't have Down syndrome. Then ductus is another vessel that needs to be looked at, and tricuspid regurgitation. So these 4 markers, if they put together along with your age, will increase your detection rate along with your dual marker to 95% for a false positive of 2.5. So this is the standard, that you add your age, NT, nasal bone, ductus, TR, and your dual marker biochemistry all together only will give you a detection rate of 95%. And then what about the biochemistry? So trisomy 21, beta HCG is high, PAPA is low, while it is less for both 13 and 18. So what we have to send as obstetrician is the right, correct values that needs to be looked at. So your MOM will be affected by what gestational age. So your CRL has to be correctly taken. Whether it's a maternal age or it's a donor egg which is being used is very important. The weight needs to be given. Ethnicity for us, smoking, IVF, whether it's IVF which kind of an IVF, and whether it's a smoking parity, number of fetuses, HCG, whether it has been given or not, and a history of previous downs, which is again not there in most of these biochemical reports. So I'm just showing you some reports which have come to us and that they have been sent to us with some abnormalities. So here, if you look at, you have to read how to read this value. So you have an HCG, NT, and PAPE. So you have it correctly done. The Wicks is just okay. She is about 39 years old. So her age risk is 1 in 185. So after doing the screen, it has come down to 8771. Has been sent saying it is increased risk for Down syndrome. That was her age risk. So a priori risk was high, but after the screening it has come down. So you don't need to do any test in this case. This patient has been sent, there is no NT measurement in this system. If you read this, you will find out what has been added in the software. And if it is no NT increase, the risk has come as 191. There is no NT added at all. So this is what, it's a dual marker. A dual marker has a detection of only 60%. Unless you add an NT to the system, it will not give you as good sensitivity and detection rate as you would have if you have an NT nasal bone. She is a 41-year-old, IVF conception, donor egg. If you look at this lab report, the age is said as 41. So it's the age of the mother which has been added to this report. And with that, the risk has come as 1 is to less than 1 is to more than 1 is to 50. So here the problem was that the age has been wrongly given and has not been added. So you can go back, tell the lab to change that date to the donor age. So the same report, everything else is same, only the age has been changed to 31, and so the risk has come down. So you don't need to do a test. So you need to also look at what you have sent and what report comes to you, whether the lab has correctly used those systems or not. This is a patient CRL of 44. So you can't do a NT at 44 weeks, and at 44 weeks the NT of 2.2 has been given, so it probably is a wrong NT which has been given, and so the risk has come up. So you can't have a CRL at 44 millimeters, and so this report was normal, because once you've got a report abnormal, you might need to do. This is a time before NIPT. Here, this patient's scan showed nasal bone is not imaged. Not imaged doesn't mean it is not there. It is just that radiologist has not seen it correctly. So one, send it back to him to please see it again if it is there or not. So if it is not imaged, the lab has put it as absent nasal bone. And if you put it as absent nasal bone, the risk had gone up. So if you re-scan her, the nasal bone was present. So if you reassess that, the risk doesn't increase and the risk comes down, and you don't need to do a test. So these are technical things which have to be looked into your lab reports. This is a patient who was on HCG because she was spotting and she was on HCG and it was high. So similar report is there where an HCG is high, which has increased the risk, and it came out as trisomy 21. So if there is a patient who's on HCG, wait for 7 days before you take the blood sample. Before that, don't send the sample, because you may get a higher risk in that. In addition, we also look at the low PAPE. So when you're looking at this, you look at the low PAPE. Here it is 0.2, which has increased the risk for aneuploidy, but it has also increased the risk for preeclampsia. So if it is best if we could do a full preeclampsia screening, but at least whatever aneuploidy screen that you have with you, make the best use of it and add this PAPE. If the PAPE is less than 0.4, they are at high risk for adverse outcome and IUGR and preeclampsia. So now coming to these increased NTs, we have said that we need to look for invasive testing to do for karyotype. So but here with such a high, with omphalocele, with an atrioventricular septal defect, I am almost sure it is Down syndrome, but not that I am sure I don't want to do a test. Although this is a bad prognosis, we would still want to do a test to know that it is trisomy 21, because the type of trisomy will decide what is the recurrence for the next pregnancy. Here I may not do a microarray because I am almost sure that it is a Down's baby. This baby had an increased NT, absent nasal bone. Previous child was Downs also. Downs on looking at the baby, not on a karyotype report. And she said, this again is Downs, I don't want to test this baby. She went somewhere and got it terminated. So first baby Downs, second look Downs, not tested. Third time, dual marker was normal. NT was normal, but at anomaly scan, absent nasal bone. So now again I am worried because this is the third baby which has probably got a Downs baby, and so this one she tested and it came out as 21-21 translocation. So it's a recurrence of 100%. So if we knew the first baby was 21-21, we could have not allowed the second and the third baby and might have thought of a donor egg. Increase NTs, recurrent increase NT. So this was the first time she had an increase NT. Dual marker was low risk. They got an integrated done, which was also low risk, came at 18 weeks. And when you tested, it came out as fish normal and karyotype at 19 plus 6 days, which said chromosomal inversion in one of the sex chromosome. Now we need to test the parents to know that they have got a sex chromosomal inversion, which probably one of the father would have it with him. But then it went to the gynecologist and they just terminated because it was 19.6 and they did not have time for doing a karyotype. Next pregnancy, she came back at good time, again an NT was increased. So recurrent NT, it is not only looking at karyotype, inversion cannot be the responsibility for an increased NT. And father, by that time we had got her inversion tested and the father had an inversion, but a recurrent NT. Here it's not only karyotype I'm looking at microarray. And it finally came out as this micro-Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, which is actually a neurological disorder of adulthood. So whether to terminate on this ground or not was a big question. We send it to neurologists. So when there's an increased NT, especially if it is a recurrent NT, you need to do a microarray. And in today's world, I think for all increased NT more than 95th centile, we probably need to do a microarray. So this patient, all markers normal, completely normal. So it's not only NT we should look at, we still need to do a biochemical screening, because if we don't do a biochemical screening, we may not pick up more things. So here the risk was increased, although an NT and all markers were normal, and tested and found out as monosomy X, always associated with NT, but this was a case where CVS showed a monosomy Turner and later on in the amnio also. So an increased NT, if everything normal, microarray normal, structure normal, cardiac normal, you can continue the pregnancy. It is not termination only on the basis of an increased NT. So I think we'll come on to a case where you have a baby which was severe IUGR in the first trimester itself. So here everything is on the lower centile, below 5th centile, although nasal bone NT was there, there's a single outflow tract. No need to do a screening test, because here I know there is going to be some problem in this baby, and it came out as triploides, and triploides may not be picked up on our screening test. So somewhere you need to decide what you want to do when you have these cases. For twin pregnancy, if it is IVF, we follow embryo transfer date, but if it is a natural conception, the bigger CRL is to be followed. Chorionicity needs to be done because the aneuploidy screening changes. So for twin pregnancy, the first trimester screening is the best screening, whichever we have available. And we have a minute to go. So if it is triplets and higher order, then no screening to be done. If you've done a reduction, then no screening to be done. If you have a CRL where you have a heartbeat and it went away, a dead fetus inside, no other screening except your good NT nasal bone ductus TR to be taken. It may also help you for growth restriction, as this patient later on had absent flow, and also for twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. Now coming to the quadruple test, if you missed the bus, you still can do a quadruple test because it still has a detection rate of 95% as well. In addition, you look at AFP in this, like how you looked at PAPE in the first one. In your quadruple test, look at AFP, and if AFP is high, it would write it as increased neural tube defect. And increased neural tube defect is not only for neural tube defect, anterior abdominal wall defect, but they are at high risk for IUGR. So this baby is screened with an increased neural tube defect, had an IUGR, severe IUGR at 18 weeks, high uterine artery, oligo, no neural tube defect, and monitored, started on whatever, went on till 30 weeks, reversal of flow, and a baby of 547 grams. So your increased AFP will write it as increased neural tube defect, which you have to follow them up for IUGR also, and this baby had a death after some time. Everything normal, but you have a screen which is positive for trisomy 18. we used to say that if there has to be a structural abnormality in the baby. But this was a gynecologist who said, no, I want a test, and it came out as mosaic trisomy 18. So if you have a screen which is trisomy 18 also, you would still need to do a test even if the structure looks completely normal. I think I would just tell you 2-3 more things that we have. If it doesn't follow a quadruple, you would look at the soft markers. 4 markers, most important, that's the last slide I have. 4 markers which are extremely important that we look at is ventriculomegaly, nuchal fold thickness, ARSA, and the absent nasal bone. These 4 markers are strong markers, and even if your a priori risk is low, you still may need to do test for these. Thank you for a patient listening.